ignorant, or maybe those genuflecting at the altar of denial out there, like the Black Panthers. Of course, my favorite Black Panther, Barack Obama, and probably the czar of the Black Panthers, Eric Holder, and the NAACP that sides with the Black Panther gang. I mean, Alex, can it get crazier than this? What is this, a Stephen King movie? It's just bizarre world. So, as I wrote in my articles, and I do appreciate you referencing rare.us, rare like in rare meat, and of course WND, worldnetdaily.com, and newsmax.com. I write a weekly feature in a lot of different conservative arenas, and what happened in Sanford, Florida is so obvious, it's insane, absolutely insane that it's become the focus of America, when a good citizen, George Zimmerman, cared about his neighborhood that had been inundated with crime and burglaries and dangerous conditions, that he conducted the most admirable function of an American, and he watched his neighborhood. It's called Neighborhood Watch. George Zimmerman saw someone after multiple crimes in the area. He called 911, proving he was not out to do anything wrong or cause any harm. He called the authorities and identified a suspicious character that the ABC and other networks absolutely criminally and dishonestly and unprofessionally manipulated the 911 tapes in order to fan the flames of racism that did not exist otherwise with Zimmerman. And he followed Trayvon Martin, and because Trayvon Martin, who I believe, what's the word I'm supposed to use here? So they say, is a dope smoker, allegedly a dope-smoking gangsta wannabe involved with illegal drugs and illegal guns and illegal people. Trayvon Martin, emboldened by a Black Panther president and a Black Panther attorney general who refuses to prosecute his fellow Black Panthers in Philadelphia, on screen intimidating voters at a voting place, George Zimmerman is now being attacked by Trayvon Martin viciously. This little boy, Trayvon, who is a 17-year-old, perfectly fit athlete, has overwhelmed George Zimmerman, has broken his nose, has bloodied his face, has threatened his life, is now taking George Zimmerman's life and pounding it against the pavement. George Zimmerman did what God created us to do, what the Constitution guarantees we have the right to do, and what all human decency tells us to do. George Zimmerman drew his gun in a last desperate maneuver to save his life in a pure and cut-and-dry act of self-defense, and stopped the life threat against him by Trayvon Martin. The bullet found Trayvon's heart and did what all good people need to do, neutralize the life-threatening force. And then the circus began, because the great law enforcement professionals of Sanford, Florida, after studying all the evidence, ascertained conclusively that George Zimmerman defended his life against a life-threatening attack by Trayvon Martin, and no charges were filed, as they should not have been, until the race-baiting gangsters of Jesse Jackson, Al Not-So-Sharpton, the Black Gangster Panthers, and the Black Panther Attorney General, abusing his authority in the Department of Justice, came down to Sanford, Florida, and fanned the flames of racism and forced the wrong accusation of second-degree murder against George Zimmerman. And the jury came back, Alex Jones, and basically said, "Eat me, racist. It was self-defense. Case closed." And we could go on about the FBI ascertaining conclusively that there's not a racist bone in George Zimmerman's body or his family, and that even though the Martin family will be manipulated like the puppets I am so heartbroken to report, after they sucked blood from the community where it took place of over $1 million is what I have allegedly heard. And now they claim that they're going to sue George Zimmerman for a civil rights and accuse him and prosecute him for a civil rights violation. I'm telling you, one flew over the cuckoo's nest was not as crazy as this is. So I pray to God that Americans will make cash donations to the Zimmerman family and contact their elected officials and let them know that the jury in Sanford, Florida, came to the obvious and right and lawful conclusion that George Zimmerman acted in self-defense and that parents should tell their children, if they don't want their children to end up like Trayvon Martin, don't smoke dope, don't want to be a gangster, and don't attack people. Case closed.
I want to look at what's happening in the aftermath of all this and why the Justice Department sent in agitators on record to start the protesting. They want a diversion from Benghazi Gate and IRS going after the Tea Party and pro-life groups.
Absolutely. Undeniably.
So, I mean, talk about that. Why would the White House want to go in and then take the case away from the police chief to where he even resigned over it? And then we've now learned the head of the IT department, the prosecutors, quits or was fired because he leaked that Trayvon Martin's cell phone had, like, guns and loot on it. All of that's going on. I mean, they were trying to railroad him. There was clearly reasonable doubt that he killed him in cold blood. There was a lot of evidence. He was defending himself. As you've said, this is our justice system. I mean, this is amazing. So what do you make of why they've used this as a diversion, what the goal is, A, and then B, Walmart's being attacked, people being beat up, whites being shot. I'm getting death threats by the hundreds an hour, calls, emails. It is crazy of this summer of rage, and if the police don't do anything in places like L.A., this could turn into a new L.A. riot.
Well, Alex, you're absolutely correct. It's a classic case, and it'll go down in history as one of the most embarrassing examples of the tail wagging the dog in the power-abusing, criminal, corrupt American government. Epitomized by the Chicago gangster Acorn scammer-in-chief and his Black Panther Attorney General. I mean, it pains me deeply. I'm sitting here in this beautiful San Diego with my son Rocco, and we just had a wonderful wedding with my daughter Chantel, with my kids and my grandkids, and my beautiful wife Shemaine is joining me on the road for the incredible gravity-defying career, and the positive energy is palpable and immeasurable. But it pains me tragically, Alex, as I know it does you, to have to admit that our government is out of control, that we're being run by power-abusing, America-hating presidents and vice presidents and attorney generals. The corruption and the abuse of power and the fraud is epitomized by this tail wagging the dog, and that there are black mobs across America that are guilty of the worst racism since the Klan would hang innocent blacks. And here's the real heartbreaker, that as I celebrate the Black Power Tour, paying tribute to my black heroes, the Bo Diddleys and the Chuck Berrys and the Howlin' Wolves and Muddy Waters and James Brown, Little Richard, that the number one cause of a black man dying in America is at the hands of another black man, that the worst racism against blacks is documented and undeniable by blacks, that the blacks have bought into this lie that somehow they're oppressed when the president is black, the attorney general is black, governors are black, senators are black, congressmen are black, mayors are black, Oprah Winfrey, the richest people in the world are black. It is a dirty lie. And if I may, Alex Jones on the Alex Jones radio show, if I could impress upon and inspire and beg everyone listening now, we have got to reach out to every black person we know and we encounter. We've got to pray for black America and beg our fellow Americans who are black to admit to this suicidal, self-inflicted curse that you've bought into the big lie of Jesse Jackson and Eric Holder and Al Sharpton, that you're not helpless. You're not a slave. You're not worthless. You're not inept. You can do anything you want to do if you just get out from the self-inflicted shackles that have been brought upon by the race baiters and the race industry, the racist industry that have convinced so many black Americans that you're inept, you're incapable of upgrade, you're incapable of independency, the food stamp scam, the welfare scam. Blacks can fix the black problem tonight if they just admit that they can do anything that I can do, anything that Alex Jones can do, anything that Thomas Sowell can do, anything that any American can do if you put your heart and soul into being honest, law-abiding, delivering excellence at every move in your life. I would like to reach out to black America and tell them to absolutely reject the lie of Al Not So Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and the Black Panthers and Eric Holder and Barack Obama. They are enslaving you. And the real shackles on black America, 100% of the time, come from black America.
Let's talk about that briefly, because 94% of black deaths from murder in this country, according to the Justice Department, from 1976 to now, over 262,000 were blacks killing blacks. That is up to 20 times the number of statistical murders going on white or other numbers. And what's incredible is you learn that the Democratic Party, with welfare and breaking up the family and taking the father out of the home, the model they've done to the blacks is their admitted model for everybody, and that it's a culture of dependency. They want us all dependent on government, because then the government class is one, and they even brag about it. Ted, this is really a collectivist conspiracy. Can you speak to that?
Well, I've seen it my whole life. Let me frame it in the most obvious of eyewitness, boots on the ground, hands-on life of mine. I was born in 1948, and there were water fountains in Detroit that were for whites, and there were water fountains in Detroit that were for blacks. I admit that. I admit the tragedy of that. I admit the injustice of that. But do you know, Alex, by the 60s and 70s in Michigan, and in my travels across this nation, I travel in every major city in this country since the 1960s. I'm still on tour today. I will play, almost 100 concerts again in 100 cities again this year. And Alex, certainly by 1980, I'm a pretty wide-ranging, radar, alive, gregarious guy. I've been clean and sober for 65 years. My radar is accurate, and it's very perceptive and receptive. Alex, racism against blacks was gone by the time I started touring the nation in the late 60s. It was gone. I have black musicians. I see blacks ascending to whatever heights and successes and powers they wanted. There was no oppression. They might have run into racism occasionally, like I did, because I had long hair, or maybe today the judgmentalism that exists out there because I got long hair and I play loud rock and roll, and because I'm an NRA board of director member. But what it does to interfere with my dreams, nothing. You can't stop my dreams. And by the 70s and certainly by 1980, nothing existed. Nothing of consequence existed to deter or compromise a black American's dream. If they got an alarm clock, they set it, they took good care of themselves, they remained clean and sober, they spoke clearly, and they demanded excellence of themselves and provided excellence to their employers. And anybody, black, white, yellow, green, or red, if you provide excellence to your boss, you will end up being the boss.
Absolutely, I can tell you.
Know that. Write that down. And if you buy the lie of oppression, you have just bought the shackles race baiters in America.